Welcome to episode 23 of the One Small Change podcast. On today's show, we have Mr. Danny Gray, the founder of revolutionary men's makeup brand Warpaint for Men. During his childhood years, Danny was severely bullied at school about his appearance, experiences which he describes as changing his life forever. He developed anxiety and body dysmorphia, which he still struggles with today. This led to him using his sister's makeup as a teenager, and he's worn makeup ever since. Danny launched his brand Warpaint for Men in 2017 to try and break down the stigma around men using makeup. And since launching, the brand has been on a rapid growth trajectory. It's now available at retail outlets all over the world, including Harvey Nicks, John Lewis and Reiss, to name just a few. It had one of the most successful Dragon's Den pitches ever seen, and in a truly incredible move recently, the brand has become the first makeup brand ever to sponsor a football team with Norwich City FC, and also in a world first, sponsoring the Wigan Warriors rugby league team. And it doesn't get much more manly than a Northern rugby league team, so I'm really excited to hear about how that came about. Danny and I have been trying to get this chat together for a long time now, and I'm really excited to go really deep with him on our shared topics of passion, entrepreneurship, mental health, topics that listeners will know I'm really passionate about. So very, very excited for today's chat. Danny, welcome. How are you doing?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on. I know it's been a nightmare trying to tech issues and everything, but I'm good to go today. So we got there in the end. So as I mentioned in your intro there, Danny, it sounds like you've had a real journey, both personally and that sort of filtered into your entrepreneurship journey as well. I'd love to hear from your end, and I'm sure you've told the story many times, but I'd love to hear from your end how your experience as a child led to mental health problems, which then indirectly led into the foundation of this incredibly successful brand. Yeah, so as you touched on, I got bullied at school. It wasn't for too long. It was only like a couple of weeks, but my ears were literally right angles to my head. So, and I'd never noticed them, if I'm honest. And then it was like three lads. I can picture myself now on the playground. Exactly the first time they sing it, and they started singing "R. Kelly, I Believe I Can Fly," and then started taking the mick out of my ears. And then, literally from that day, it's the first time I really noticed my ears. I just started obsessing about them. So much so that even, I think 4 or 5 months later at 12, I had my ears pinned back on the NHS. But it didn't go back quite far enough because it was a new type of operation. So I still obsessed about my ears, and that led on to other things. So when I got to 14, 15 years old, when I got spots, I didn't get acne, just spots. That was a massive thing for me. Turned to my sister, who literally gave me a bit of concealer, and that I couldn't believe what a product could do. I couldn't believe how it could help, and so I've been wearing makeup for the last 20 years. And it's about wearing it for myself, to give me confidence. But look, as a straight guy, that was seen as a big taboo, so I didn't really talk about it. But then growing up through those 20 years, I always felt there was a need for a men's focused brand, just because I would never go into a store and buy a woman's brand, especially something as feminine as makeup. And look, the other thing for me is that I want to have a different type of makeup, right? I want it very light, matte finish, no floral smell to it, where all the foundations were quite heavy. So I decided to create my own brand, and we launched in November 2018, but it took about a year, 14 months actually of development before that. So that's the reason that I created the brand, because I knew there would be a lot of other guys out there in my shoes who probably wouldn't try it without there being something they could relate to, or a male-focused brand. And the education for me as well. So I felt women, not overcomplicate it, but make it seem like it's a 45-minute routine. It's very complicated, where for me, it literally takes me 5 minutes. And it's, I taught myself how to apply it. So I realised there wasn't a massive science behind it, because you can always redo it. So I wanted to sort of encapsulate that in a
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've done that in spades, and it is very, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's beautiful. And I love branding. And my brand is obviously fairly monochromatic as well, but it's a real nice sort of black, white writing, very bold, very simple, but very sort of classy and masculine at the same time. So it's a really nicely designed, branding.
There's an interesting point about that, which not a lot of people know. Just before, for the first 14 months developing the brand, I went for a completely different look. And it wasn't what it was today. And literally 2 months before we were going to launch, I was looking at it going, it's just not right. And so we had everything. I bought products, I bought stock, and I was like, right,
wow.
let's scrap it and start again. Literally 2 months before we launched, so that's just launched back another 2 months.
What did it look like before?
Do you know what? If I was in my office, I could show you one, but it literally had a head on it. It was a bit like Barbary.
Okay.
Where, it's Barber round signs where probably 8 years ago, it was quite on trends, where I just saw when I launched 28 months ago, it was come to the end. So I wanted to make it more clean, simple. So yeah, it was probably one of the best decisions I made.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's iconic and so different from everything else in the sector, which I think is so important. I mean, having the idea, and you can see the thought process there behind the idea, but having the idea and executing on it are two very different things. I'd love to know a little bit more on a granular basis about, was the decision, you obviously have invested a lot of money at the start without any real proof of concept because it was kind of creating its own sector. How did you have that confidence to go all in on it? And especially with I think was this your first startup that you'd done? You didn't have any experience?
I've done a few little bits. Yeah. I had a bouncy castle business when I was 16, nice. Believe it or not. Yeah. So not on the same scale. I ran my dad's business, so I've always been very entrepreneurial, but never started a full business. But one thing someone said once was to me when I had the idea, they said, "Look, 5% inspiration, 95% perspiration." In terms of the idea is the little bit; it's actually getting it to market.
Absolutely.
But the other thing I say as well is that my gut was telling me that there was a need for this, and because of the growth of men's grooming and skincare, all you look at is skincare and say, well, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, guys hardly wore deodorant, the older generation, where skincare has become a massive part of a man's routine. And look, skincare does not make you live a day longer. It's not going to prolong your lifespan. It doesn't improve your health. What it does is reduce wrinkles, and that makes you feel better. So it's exactly the same with using a bit of makeup, but you're covering up maybe an imperfection. So for me, it was a natural progression. And the other thing I'd say as well, you shouldn't always wait till you're 100% sure on anything, because you'll never be 100%. So for me, if you're 70%, you need to go both barrels for it. So I did test the market, created a brand, created a website, bought some product in from China, right? Put some badges on it. Look, you can, because in China, this is the difference. You can buy 100 units.
Just white label. Yeah.
Sticker on it. Yeah, white label it, put it out there. I think I got 7 sales in 2 days.
Buzzing.
So I was like, right, stop. 100%. I was like, right, stop. I need to do it properly. So then I wanted to go and invest and create my own actual makeup and formulate it. But then that is extremely expensive, and it's very, very difficult to get in front of the right manufacturers because I wanted to do a men's makeup brand. But luckily, I went through 3 different manufacturers, found one who had just been been incredible for me, reduced their MOQ, but still my opening order was 92 grand, including, because I source all my packaging as well, right? Because what they could do was private label it, and they've got packaging there and bottles, but it just wouldn't be what I wanted the brand to look like, very feminine. So I had to go away and source all my own packaging and buy in bulk. So I free issued everything. So look, I think to start, it cost me 150 grand, right? And that was without selling a single product. And then we launched in. So it's a big risk, remortgaged my house, sold my cars, watches, everything I had, quit my full-time job. And then it started in November 2018. And first month I've said we probably sell 2 grand. In my forecast, we did 11 grand. Second month we did 28. Third month we did 36. And I was like, okay. And it was me and a 19-year-old girl in a flat that first month, picking and packing orders. And it's gone from there, mate.
So that growth curve for the first 3 months is pretty impressive. How did you drive growth so quickly with obviously no one knew who you were at that point? You didn't have a huge budget for marketing, I assume. How did you manage to drive such rapid growth? Other than obviously just market demand was there, that was clear, but you've still got to get it in front of people's eyes, right?
Yeah, look, so my cash I had left was 20 grand, right? So that was cash I had to spend on ads, pay myself, pay the girl who was working for me, and we did it through social, right? But what we did a little bit different was there were some other men's brands out there, but they were doing it very different. It was very, I don't want to say feminine, but it looked like a female brand, like packaging, website, everything they were doing, where we came in from a different angle. And I used models with tattoos up to their necks, right, which 3-4 years ago was on trend, very trendy. No one was using those type of models, so that then using that through social and the way we did content as well, which was very different, that seemed to work. Look, we got pelters for it, absolute pelters, like ridiculed, horrible messages on social. We went viral in America. We went viral on Twitter. We were trending number 1 in the world for a day.
Amazing.
And that was because we had 8 million views in 24 hours because we put a video on Twitter, and it got lambasted by everyone in the world. So we're on ABC News, Good Morning America. I thought the brand was dead. But you learn a lot when you start going and thinking, it was very difficult at that time because I thought everything was gone, and we were in every newspaper you can imagine. When I put the phone down in the office, it was ringing the next day with Daily Mail, Yahoo News, everyone wanted an interview, GQ magazine. But it gave us a brand, and where you get this, we were getting a lot of pelters this end. We had a lot of people saying, well, I like what you're doing, and we had record sales. So quite, because we went out there a little bit, that's the thing. If you're vanilla, if you're in the middle, you're not going to create a buzz or anything. Where when we went to that scale with it, it was very difficult because it was hard to take, but we got everyone wrote about us, so everyone knew who we were. Not everyone, but we were in every magazine, every beauty magazine, but for a negative sense. But it started the discussion about men's makeup, because before then there was hardly any press written about men's makeup, and then since then we've been in over 580 odd now, because we track every bit of press we've been on. So in 2 years, 580, and these are top. We were like J-Lo. Do you know J-Lo? Obviously J-Lo, her ex.
Everyone knows J-Lo, right?
Of course you know J-Lo. And her ex has just brought out a brand.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. The baseball player, is he, or something like that?
Yeah, so he's brought out a concealer, right? So CNN did a piece on it, and it's got Rodriguez brings out makeup, and the first brand they talk about is Warpaint.
That's brilliant.
And that, it's amazing. I can't believe it, for honest, but we would never have got that if we hadn't gone through all that shit at the beginning. And that was because we created the conversation.
Well, let's talk about that bit, because that's the part that I'm fascinated about with regards to how we've started this chat. And what I know about you and your history is that on one side you've got this anxiety, this body dysmorphia, which I've been very open in the past. I struggle to a certain degree with anxiety myself. And I know that putting myself out there in any format, whether that be me lecturing on a stage to dentists, or whether me putting myself out there as an entrepreneur, or going on Dragon's Den, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on, or on the news or whatever, it obviously heightens those feelings of anxiety. Now, I can only imagine that when you had all of this negative press, when you were in the eye of that storm very early on in the business, how was that for you? At the time, could you see the huge light at the end of the tunnel? Or were you like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever, and just in a complete hole of anxiety, which is what I imagine I would be like, because my skin is very, very thin, and anyone says anything negative about me, I take it very personally. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a good point. So, look, 10 years ago, about 8 years ago, when I was about 20, I was seriously bad with body dysmorphia. It was consuming me every minute of every day. So I reached out, got help, talked about it, and for example, now, right, I'm here, and I haven't put gel in my hair, right, because I'm going to get my hair cut, after this, because I get my hair cut once a week as part of my routine to help me manage. But before, I would never have been able to do this without my hair being done. But that's because I'm learning and I feel more confident in myself. But back then, when I launched the brand, what I didn't do was talk about my story. It was on there on the About Us page, but it was a bit of text, and I didn't really focus on that. But when we got the pelters, what I did see was everyone was just lambasting the brand and what we're trying to do. And the backlash, by the way, was all women. 80% of it on Twitter was women just saying, it's ridiculous you just buy a female brand. But that's the point for me. It's almost like, well, that's always been available and guys aren't doing it. Yeah, and guys who could benefit from it wouldn't walk in a store, go up to a woman's counter, ask a woman about makeup because they just wouldn't feel comfortable. But what I didn't see was no one in the press was talking about my story and going, well, it's ridiculous, So that made me think, well, look, they need to understand why I've created this brand. So when literally 3 months later, I was filming Dragon's Den. No, actually, that's a lie. That month it went viral. Really? I filmed Dragon's Den, believe it or not. So I went viral at the beginning of May. Wow. At the end of May, I was filming Dragon's Den. When I went to it was so weird, right? I was driving up to Dragon's Den the day before, as you probably know. And I had to pull over to do interviews with America on the way up there about this negativity that we received. And then when I went to Dragon's Den, I made a decision, like, the first thing I'm talking about is me, you know, and why I started the brand. And, like, for me, that was a big thing because, you know, all my family and my mates, close people knew that I suffered with this and more makeup. But my wider people who knew me didn't know. You know, they didn't know I had bullied dysmorphia. I was just Jack the lad, out, you know, always seen happy and, like, so it was a massive thing for me on Dragon's Den. And then after Dragon's Den came out, as you know, it's quite, even though I knew I had 5, to get the lead up to it coming out was nerve-wracking because I knew then it would be out, like, massive, and everyone would know. But the reaction I got was just overwhelming. You know,
so for those people that haven't, those listeners that haven't seen Danny's episode, if you're going to go on Dragon's Den, I'd recommend watching it because we certainly took so many positive tips from Danny's pitch and the way that he handled the whole thing. It was he got 5 offers. They were fighting over him, and I'd love to. There's a couple of points there actually that I want to come back to, but the first thing is just tell us more about the whole experience of Dragon's Den. I mean, how did you find it? How long were you in there for? I mean, we were in there for 2.5 hours, which was pretty brutal. But I'd love to know what your experience of the whole thing was.
Yeah, it's so weird. We were both in there, you know, but it's very nerve-wracking. And do you know what it is like in anything in life, right? If you're always selling, yeah, people forget this. Like everything you do, you sell, right? If you're a marketing person and you create a bit of content or something, you're trying to sell your bit of content, an idea to, even if it's your boss, right, about what you think it should look like. And if you're passionate about something, that's quite easy, you know. And if you've got the answers for everything, you should be very confident. So I was confident about having the answers, you know, about we've done 200 grand in like 6 months in revenue. You know, I knew the numbers. But going in, I was very nervous because of the backlash I had received before. If it went poorly on Dragon's Den, I promise the brand would have probably died because I couldn't have gone there, then got absolutely ridiculed or like, no, it's ridiculous what you're doing. So that's what I was nervous about. Not about do I have the answers, it was about what the reactions would be. And in the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I got grilled, as you probably expect. But really? And it was by Theo Papitas, out of all people, you know. He just grilled me. They do that to see, but then after about 20 minutes, then Peter Jones just come out and said, look, or a bit longer probably, about half an hour.
What was that quote? What was the quote he said? He will say, I'm ready to put my Warpaint on, right?
He says, I'm going to put my war, but he said, like, I love you, I love the brand, I love everything we've done. And then all of a sudden, for the first time, I relaxed because I was like, I didn't expect him to come out and just say, because he hadn't said a lot. And he said, I'm going to put my Warpaint on. And then from that point, it was very positive. But, you know, I made the decision before I went on there to reduce my equity last minute. The equity you were offering, you mean? You know, and so when I was negotiating towards the end, I was so like adamant that I wasn't going to go above 10%, you know. And then when they come at 20, that's why the negotiation, I was just like, I literally walked away. I would have. So I think that was why that negotiation's gone. It went viral afterwards. It was bizarre. It was trending, and then people were saying, because I was around my sister's house with loads of mates to watch it, right? And obviously,
so nervous.
It was mental. Oh my God. Yeah. But then everyone's going mad. It was like a football game. Everyone's cheering. You know, I was like, back. And then afterwards, I was upset and like emotional because obviously, then they were like, Dan, you're trending. Like, no socks is trending. And they were saying no.
Same here.
Because I had no socks. It was like no socks for Brexit,
no socks for
Brexit and stuff like that. So, yeah, I know. And then the next day, the Daily Mail said it was the best one in 14 years. And that was a bit. And then, yeah, and then it got in the press quite a bit afterwards, which is quite rare for Dragon's Den to happen. So it was just crazy, mate. But it was after that turned round. But we were in there. I was in there about an hour and 45, and I'll tell you what. At the end, mate, if anyone hasn't seen it, if you do watch it, there's a bit where I go, look, Tage and Peter, who I wanted, because what was happening, they were all then going to join up together and start. And I just said, before we even get into that, I was knackered. Like, right, Peter, so I just wanted, because otherwise it would probably be another half an hour. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it was. And when I come off, one of the directors who was there says, that's the best one I've done in 7 years. And that sort of hit me a little bit. And I went outside and called my missus, and just that hit me then, because then the pressure was like, I couldn't talk. I was just bawling my eyes out, because I was like, it was everything in an hour and 45 minutes. It was the whole
all of the last, well, I guess 2 years of work to get to that stage, right? 2-3 years.
Yeah. So it was great, and then we got a lot of reaction afterwards, and people want to talk to me and stuff. So yeah, it's good.
When I came out, the director said to me, "You were sweating quite a lot, and they really crashed the focus in on one of your sweat beads."
Oh my God.
So I was like, "Oh, cheers, okay." So I said to all my mates, I'm like, "Lads, it went really well. We had some offers like from Tej and Deborah, exactly who we wanted. Like, I'm really chuffed with it, but I'm very nervous that I'm literally going to look like I'm on my Peloton."
Yeah, it's mad. It's mad, isn't it?
I made the mistake of wearing a double-breasted thick suit, and it was about 28 degrees last September. So,
oh my God, yeah,
that was a big mistake.
Just a t-shirt, really comfortable.
Yeah, but so my understanding is that you didn't. That deal obviously didn't go through in the end. What happened now? Because I know that happens a reasonable amount after Dragon's Den. People seem to think that when a deal is done in the Den, that's the end of it, and they just hand the money over and that's it. But there's a lot of due diligence that goes on before and after, and accountancy and all these sort of real workings of businesses that people don't get to see. What happened with your situation? How did that end up?
So look, I think if you go in for an investment and you've only got one option, you're not doing your job right. So I had different options on the table. So it just wasn't, I just decided it wasn't
the right one.
Yeah, that was it really. And look, Tage and Peter were good, like fine, but they're quite keen to make it happen. But just for me at the time, it wasn't right. So I waited another 6 months. And then 6 months later, we actually raised 1.3 million. So, and on Dragon's Den, I was raising 70,000. So I managed to then keep it going for another 6 months without raising money.
Yeah.
And then I raised 1.3 million for, not a lot more than what I was giving around the Den. So,
yeah.
That's why I did it. Because to prove concept a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then I'll raise them.
But also it's TV, and I think people have to understand that on TV they're going to go, it's not necessarily how these things happen in real life. The equity discussion is always a lot more in the Dragon's favour, I think, when you're in their den. So when you're the startup, and as you say, when you've got a proof of concept, you've got proof of product market fit and that sort of thing, you're in a much stronger position as the incumbent brand, and there's a lot of opportunity for that investor to make a lot of money in that arrangement, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So I just think it's not. Look, it is real world, but that's not necessarily. Potentially, when you go for a seed round or a that sort of round, like potentially it is like you can just get a single investor who might be like that, but when you go down to raising more money, it's a bit more nuts and bolts. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're in the process of raising some money at the moment, so I'm in that round at the moment, and it's it's complex when it's the first time you're doing it, right?
Yeah, like it is. If you like, shout me if you need any advice, mate.
Yeah, I definitely will do.
We've just raised again. Actually, we've just done another. So yeah.
With Angels again, or is this a venture?
No,
venture
it's on
round?
VC. I'm VC backed from my last round.
Okay.
We've just done another round as well, but we didn't go out to market. We just did it internally with all our
existing
VCs.
investors.
We raised it, which is great because it just shows their belief and what we're trying to do. So
Brilliant. Congrats on that. That's awesome.
Thanks, mate.
So you mentioned something earlier, which was around the sort of when you were 28, when you were starting the project, and you reached out for help And I imagine that's something around therapy or something of that sort, but maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to know a bit more about that, because I think that's a really crucial part for a lot of people, and hopefully anyone out there who's struggling with it, maybe trying to manage these things on their own. And certainly a lot of my guests that have been on the podcast before, Jim Chapman, Matt Willis, Dan Moricerta, entrepreneurs and celebrities and so on, a lot of them have found therapy and actually getting professional help to be really, really powerful. So is that the line that you went down, or did you find help in other ways?
So when I was 28, which is like 7 years ago, I thought I was losing my hair.
Really?
And yeah, so for bullied dysmorphia, I remember now I've got my car from work and I was like, oh, what's that? And then I thought I had a gap up here in my hair. And obviously you can see now my hair's quite thick. But I obsessed about that for 2 years. When I say obsessed, towards the end of the second year, it was literally every minute of every day, every minute. That's all I thought about. Watching TV, talking to someone, I'll be looking at their hair. And the only way I had a release was having a drink or drugs and stuff like that, or going out, and forgetting about it. And then one day I just came in at 4 o'clock in the morning, basically not in a good place. And I woke up my mother-in-law, of all people, and just went, they knew something was wrong. They knew I obsessed about the way I looked, but no one knows how bad it is inside your head. I just said, I can't cope. It's every second, and I just can't do it anymore. And then after that, I started talking about it, how much it was affecting me, and all my missus and all my family very supportive. And, I did go to counselling for a bit, but even that, and then I had a hair transplant.
Really?
But I didn't even need a hair transplant. I went in to get it done. They were like, why are you here? But I did it not to mask it, but it's like that changed everything for me, believe it or not. Even though I didn't really, it's hard to explain. But then off the back of that, I've learned how to manage. As I said, I would never have come on without my hair done. Or, I used to get changed 8 times before going out, shower 4 times, when now I've learned to be, right, if I'm feeling that way, I need to stop and give myself a break and then go back in, rather than anxiety build up and build up and build up. Because then eventually I'm up here. Doesn't matter what I do, I'm just not going to be right. And if I'm not right, I wouldn't be able to do this call, or I wouldn't be able to go to work, I wouldn't be able to speak to people. So that was the time for me when it was a breaking point, which I don't want people to get to, by the way.
Of course.
That's the problem. When you get artists, helplines and everything are a bit archaic in the way they are, because helplines are great, but they're for when people are desperate. And 10 years is the average span of someone first feeling something, is anxiety, depression, anorexia, whatever it is, to reaching out. The average is 10 years, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. It just gets worse and worse until you hit this point at 10 years, right? So if we can get something that can help prevention at this point, or people can understand maybe what they're feeling, can manage it, I promise you that'll change the world, because people will then start being like, maybe I do have anxiety, but there's ways I can deal with it. Because when you're at this point, you think there's no out, so you don't even reach out. Where here, you'd be like, well, what can I do to make myself a little bit feel better?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a lovely tangent into what we were chatting about before the call, which is your new project that you're working on, which I know is very in the even more in the mental health space. I guess Warpaint has its mental health angle to it, in that it supports people in that confidence, body dysmorphia sort of section. But your new project is very much directly focused at that major problem, right?
Yeah. So for me, the Warpaint's going really well. I get a lot of personal messages, which is amazing. Like I get people saying, like, I love your brand and what you stand for. I'm not ready for makeup, but I just love what you're doing, which is, when you think about it, I just think that's unbelievable, because if there's a fashion brand, you're never going to message fashion brands and say, I love what you stand for, but I'm never going to buy your clothes. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It just wouldn't happen. So, and then I've been having calls with customers, with girlfriends, mums, dads, about people with lack of confidence and stuff like that. So I wanted to give back so much more, and I wanted Warpaint to give back more than just about. And the other thing for me is that you should use products to help you deal with your mental health, or anything, right? Not just products. Is it going to speak to someone? Is it going to the gym every day? Is it going for a run? Is it wearing a bit of makeup because it's going to support you? But that's a tool to use, but you need to get your mind right as well. So Jack, which I've founded as another business, and a new project, so it's called JAAQ, and stands for Just Ask a Question. I honestly think it's going to change everything about how we access information about mental health. I started it 18 weeks ago, and it's just a bit that it's unbelievable the traction it's getting. Like, it's scaring me a little bit. So, but that, Warpaint's funding that, it's taking my time as well, but I just want to do something. It's like a non-profit side of the business. So it's something that we want to do to give back. And that's the whole thing about talking about prevention, about this is a way for people to access world-leading doctors and get questions answered without having to go or wait. For example, go to your local GP about bullied dysmorphia. They go, right, you need to speak to someone who knows what they're talking about. I'm going to refer you to the NHS, 32 weeks lead time. So if you imagine someone who's gone through that 10 years, then they reach out because they go, oh my God, I can't cope. They go to the local GP and they go, when you firstly say, I can't cope, I need help, because now you're at a breaking point, they go, we've got to wait 32 weeks. And in that first session with that doctor, who's a bullied dysmorphia expert, what are you going to do? You're just going to ask questions about what bullied dysmorphia is. Is there medication? Is there this? Does it affect your sex life? Is there a cure for it? How does it affect other people? And by the way, it's not just that. It's about asking, how do I help someone in that situation? What's the worst thing to say to someone?
Really important.
And all of that information is answered for you on Jack in a way that's never been done before with the world-leading doctors. So I'm very excited about what.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. And I've never thought about that wait time before, and how, depending on the severity of the mental health issue, that could be the difference between someone living and dying in that 32-week period, if it's at a level of suicidal ideation or anything of that sort. So it's
well, you got to think about as well. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, yeah. So these people who have reached out and are saying that I'm struggling, like, that is here. Can you imagine? So the iceberg goes like that. All these people who are first experiencing something down here. It just leads up to this point where I can't cope. So when we got all these stats and everything about depression, it's tip of the iceberg. It's like almost like what's going on in the pandemic. Like, we're testing this amount of people. We haven't got a clue how many people have got it. It's just been tested. Exactly the same with mental health, right? And the other thing for me about mental health is a dirty word. Mental health is not a illness, and it's not like there are illnesses: depression, anxiety, bullied dysmorphia, anorexia, all these things. But mental health is every second of every day. It's not just, it's about how you manage your mental health. So I want to try and destigmatize that a little bit as well and be like, but it's fine to explore about mental health, because if you get some tips, that's what can genuinely help you, even if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always look at mental health like physical health. Like, you go to the gym not because you have a medical condition. You go to the gym many people go to the gym for many different reasons, but you maintain good health to try and prevent illness from getting to a state where it needs medical intervention. That's the way we should be looking at mental health as well, right? Like, we need to be constantly thinking about how we balance our lives, how we have more exercise, eat better food, have better sleep, have better relationships with people who are close to us. All of those factors play a part in our mental health, and whether or not it's going to get to a level where it turns into a disease, as opposed to just 5 days out of the month I feel anxious, definitely. 10 days out of the month I feel anxious, that sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%, mate. So Jack will be launched in the next few months, and I think it'll get, hopefully,
that's super exciting, mate. I love that. Can't wait to see how that progresses. Someone who I saw you speaking with, who I know is a big supporter of what you guys are doing at Warpaint, and I'm sure he's a massive supporter of this, is where you did an interview with Stephen Fry around changing stereotypes. I'd love to hear about how that came about, and what stereotypes you feel need changing in 2021. Where are we at with that now?
So that was through Norwich. So obviously not obviously, because not everyone will probably know, but I sponsored Norwich City. We're one of their main sponsors. And I did that because, I think what we try and do as a brand is stuff that's different. And I always think we have to do stuff to make the market, right? So I launched here you go, it's actually here. So can you remember Haynes manuals? The car manuals. So the publishing house. So Haynes are famous for publishing manuals about cars, yeah? So it's an older brand, but they're a huge publishing house, just been sold for 90 million. they reached out to me about creating the first ever men's makeup manual. So we published a book with Haynes, and it's got absolutely everything in there from products. We did all imagery in-house. This is the first ever book published about men's makeup in the world. But my point is, the only reason I did that, I don't care if we sell a single book. It's about doing something that helps cement the market. Yeah? So doing stuff like sponsoring Norwich City, I wanted to do that because people would never expect it. And what it does, it starts the conversation. So when I did that sponsorship with Norwich City, I said, look, it's not about products. I'm not coming on here, by the way, and getting you a place to wear makeup because that's absolutely fake. And I did that on a Sky Sports interview, and they were a bit like, well, yeah, because it's fake. That's not what this is about. What it's about is starting a conversation about, when we start about makeup, like I say, makeup in sport, in football, like that will help break that stereotype around everything. So what I mean, everything is, there's not a gay Premiership footballer. By stats, or whatever you want to call it, there has to be. So on average, 10% of men are gay. There's like 3,000 footballers or something ridiculous, and there's none of them are gay. But that's because there's a stereotype around them coming out.
Is that still the situation in the Premiership, for example? So no players are openly gay?
No active players are openly gay. Not one player is openly gay. So, and I had a conversation with, but that's why Norwich fit us, because they had the first gay footballer. They have a pride flag outside the stadium. So that's why I really like Norwich and what they're about. But that's all about breaking stereotypes. And then Stephen Fry saw what we were doing, saw the partnership with Norwich, and they approached him. And then it was the first thing in 14 years he'd done with the club. So I had a chat with him, and it wasn't necessarily about makeup. It was just about stereotypes and everything, which was incredible,
Is he?
He's really tall. I said that when he came in, I was a bit like, oh my God. But, really top guy. And look, then I've done a sponsorship just recently with Wigan Warriors, right? So it's the same to do the thing there. I went up to speak to them, the team. They wanted me to hold talk in front of the whole team.
League as well. Players. I mean, you don't get any harder. You don't get any harder or more masculine than a rugby league team.
They're absolute. All of them are ripped to shreds. After my discussion with them, because what I wanted to show them was that this is not about me coming to put makeup on you. I told them my story and what I'm trying to do, and afterwards the reaction was just unbelievable. And then we were on Sky and stuff again, and the headline on Sky was not Warpaint, it was Wigan put on the Warpaint to tackle mental health. So that is exactly why we did that as sponsorship. It's nothing about the return on investment for us. I don't care if it's a single product. It's about that is the message. So I'm just really happy it came across like that, because that's what I want to do. And, that's what I enjoy doing, like trying to, like even the content we put out with Wigan, it was me playing rugby. I played football at a half decent level, but I wear makeup. Doesn't matter. Let anyone do whatever they need to do to be the real them. If you're a guy and you want to wear a dress, you go and wear a dress. If that's what you want to do and it makes you feel you. And if everyone could just let everyone do that, the world's going to be a better place. And if we can break the mold with some of this feminine's makeup, it will lead on to a lot more things about guys feeling comfortable. Because I talked about this the other day, right? If you think about, sexism, yeah? So back in years ago, 50s, women stayed at home. They didn't go to work. They got glammed up. Guys went to work. They went to the pub. They didn't wear deodorant. They would come home and women get glammed up for them. What's happened right in society is that women are now getting into the workplace and becoming very senior, and it's been more level playing field. It's still not where it should be, but it's moved on a lot. What hasn't moved on is the flip of that. So guys who went to work, but when it comes to their feminine aspect about looking after yourself or getting glammed up or, feeling confident in how you look, that's still behind, but it's catching up. So if you look at that in that sort of way, that's all I think we need to do. Is like women are trying to get equal rights and, in the workplace and everything, which 100% should be right. But then for me, it's about the guys feeling, where we're still archaic around guys go to work, guys go down the pub. They don't really care about how they look. They don't talk about their feelings. Where women, they used to stay at home, get ready, get dressed up, but they would talk to all their friends about their feelings. That is what we need to shift for guys, to be able to do that. What women are very good at. And the other way around, what we need to shift for women is women need to have equal rights in the workplace and everything else, and not be sexist to be able to play football. That is where we are catching up, and hopefully we're playing a very, very small part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for those that haven't seen it, that when Danny says he's sponsoring the teams, he literally means Warpaint for Men is on the chest of these shirts that the rugby league players and the Norwich players have on their team shirts. And I think for Joe Bloggs, who's sitting in Wigan watching the rugby league game, for them to see that and to see that their team that they're so passionate about, and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people watch these teams on a weekly basis, for them to see that the teams that they're so passionate about, and in a very masculine, alpha-driven environment, to be supporting that, what in essence points a direction towards equality and acceptance of things that are natural and part of the human condition and part of all animal conditions, I think is really, really powerful. And I don't think it's a small part. I think it's a massive part. I can't think of a bigger statement in such a masculine environment than what you're doing with that. So it's really great.
And they won, and Norwich went up this season. They won the championship. So and we've just renewed.
Oh, there you go. That's awesome.
So we just renewed a deal with them. So we're going to be in the Premiership with them. So which is incredible.
Spectacular. So. That's awesome. Have you met Delia Smith yet? Because I know she's big.
No,
big...
I've had one of the gigs though. I have one of the gigs.
That's what first comes to mind when I think of Norwich. I think of Delia. Brilliant.
Come on!
Yeah, that one. On Radio 1 all the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about your successes with the brand, and it seems like it's just going from strength to strength. But I'm a big fan of talking about failure on this podcast and how failure shapes us, because I do believe that you can't succeed your way to success, and you need to fail your way there, and that we should. In discussions of changing mindset, that we need to change our mindset around failure so that we don't let it negatively impact on our mental health, I guess, which is kind of a nice closed loop there. But I'd love to hear a bit more about your failures and how you manage those, how you deal with those nowadays.
At the beginning, it was really tough, so especially as a founder, it's a very lonely place, especially when I started. I had no one really to talk to, and everything's on you, all the decisions you make, which is very hard. Luckily now I've got a much bigger team around me, and I've got a lot of people who are a lot better at stuff than I am in those positions, which I think that's a big thing to learn, that I'm not great at everything. I'm great at ideas and stuff like that, but when it comes to other bits, you need a team around you. But failing shouldn't be afraid of it. And if you're going to fail fast. That's such a cliche saying, but it's true. If something's not working, try it. And it's a learning. And I've had a lot. It looks like from the outside that everything's rosy and we're doing really well, but trust me, behind this, it's like a swan. Yeah. On the top, they look like they're gliding, but at the bottom, they're absolutely paddling away. And that's what happens in every business. And you shouldn't be afraid of it. It's really hard though. And a lot of the times I used to get dug down and come home and worry about everything all night and think. And the other thing was about, I get imposter syndrome, right, every day. So not as much anymore, but I still do, where, how am I going to do this? I can't do this. I need someone else to do it for me. I'm not going to be able to make this brand as big as it is. And that's, I think, what a lot of people have at the start, is the belief in yourself. And I didn't have it. I might have seemed very confident, but got dysmorphia and anxiety. That's what happens. You put on a brave face, but behind, and, stuff doesn't go right. We went viral. I've had points where I've had no money in the bank, like no money, and I'm thinking this could all fall apart, and I just, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. But it's the best thing I've ever done. I can't wait to go to bed at night. I can't wait to get up in the morning, which I feel very privileged to be in that position, because I enjoy everything I do. But the failings are everywhere. And you've just got to be like, right, accept that they're going to happen. Where before, when a failing, like a bit like if someone is negative towards me or says I'm not doing something right, I used to take that so personally. Like what you said, Simon, really, really affected me, where I've learned now to deal with that. And we are going to get things wrong and we are going to not do the right thing. But that's part of learning. But at the beginning, that's really hard. Really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the good thing about being a startup founder is that you fail so much that it almost desensitizes you to it. Because there's so many micro failures on a day to like little niggles. This isn't going quite right. This bit of content's not quite right. The copy here is wrong. This article's come out about us and they haven't said this correctly. Like there's so many little issues like that certainly I'm finding, and what did we launch? March 2020. Even over the last year or two, it's been so many of those that it's becoming less of a heart-sinking moment every time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I like to learn. I like anything I do. I was going to share my garden, right? But I planted one plant in my garden, and then I was obsessed with gardening. That's the way I am.
Yeah, but you're also with the same age, mate, and I'm starting to get obsessed with gardening. So I think it's just a getting old thing.
Yeah, I just start. Then I'll learn about it, and all I'm saying, failings is part of that. If something's not going right, like I could have a chat with a startup now and give them a lot of advice compared to where I was 2 years ago, and that's in like 2.5 years what I've learned. But everyone will learn that. Everyone will go through that, and that's what you realise. Actually, it's making you a founder.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Those failings are if everything went right all the time, I promised you'd
be weak.
You wouldn't be a founder.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible, and you wouldn't learn, and you wouldn't accept failings, and like that. It's just about getting your head. But I used to be really bad at it. If stuff wasn't going right, I used to question everything all the time. Come home, this isn't going to work. It's not going to go. How are we going to go from X amount of revenue a month to X amount? I should be, oh my God, how the hell are we going to do it? Now we're at that revenue comfortably every month. Now I'm looking at the next revenue and going, it's like a boxing match. So it's like being a founder is like a boxer, right? So you train and train and train. Then you go and do your first fight. You go through 12 rounds. It's hard work. It's hard graft. You get the win. What happens next? The bigger, tougher opponent comes.
Yeah.
And you've got to go through those 12 rounds again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And that's what's going to happen. It doesn't, when you get to a certain point, it's not like, oh, I've got there. It's going to be easy.
I want to coast from here. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what you've got to accept and be like, you've got to just take it head on and
absolutely.
And then just enjoy what you're doing as well, right? Because for the first 18 months, I probably didn't. I was overstressing myself. Where now, right this second, I'm probably in the best place I've ever been in my life, ever.
That's brilliant.
Right this second, talking to you, and that's through learning. Learning how to deal with yourself, learning how to deal with pressure, learning how to do failings, learning how to do relationships, learning how to do everything. So just be accepting of those failings because it'll make you a better person.
Yeah, really, really powerful. And I think especially when we hear about your story and how it seems as though actually the pressure and the failings of your founder life have condensed you down into this position of happiness, or certainly helped with that. It would seem, common sense would seem like it would be the opposite. You have lots and lots of negatives and failure, and then it pushes you the other way and things get worse. But it seems like it's actually pushed you into that better place, which is great to see, I think.
Yeah, and I just, do you know what it is? If it all stopped now, or I continued at this level, I would be so happy. Do you know what I mean? And it's always about fucking money, which is a really frustrating thing. And I'm not driven by money. I promise you. And I think a lot of people say that. But money is a byproduct of success, right? All I want to do is do something that people go, oh my God, that was quite cool. That feeling you get when people say that's amazing what you're doing, or, that is unbelievable. And, we get messages and stuff like that. And, okay, what's the difference now? Okay, then we've gone to be worth 100 million in 10 years. Like that's great, but it's not honestly about having this lifestyle now. I'm in the same house I was in. I'm skint, but I'm happy. And that, I would comfortably stop now and just be like, I'm happy, and just let's just do this forever because I can't wait to go to bed and to get up in the morning. Yeah. That is happy, not about how much money I've got in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I'm interested about that is you mentioned obviously I know your startup is bigger than mine. You say you're 16 staff. It's significantly more operationally than ours, and you've got Jack as well. It's so busy, right? Do you think that, let's say that Warpaint finished tomorrow, do you think that you could ever relax, or do you think you're now in this sort of net set position that you have to you have to be as busy as you are now. Because I think that, and I think, people always think, I'm going to retire, I'm going to go lie on a beach one day, just chill out. That's going to be my life for the last 30 years of my life or whatever. But I just can't see that ever happening.
Never, mate. And do you know what it is? Like, that's what I just talked about there about money. What do you think about all these huge entrepreneurs who've, like, Elon Musk, the amount of things he's done? Do you think he could retire 10 years ago and lay on the beach and be comfortable? But it's not about the money. Do you know what I mean? It's about that buzz. You know, when you secure a deal or you do something that's really cool, you get customers say it's amazing, or you get, you know, that affirmation of someone saying that. And that's why they do it. Yeah, it's about keeping, if you're busy and you're active and stuff like that, generally you'll be healthier anyway. So if I stop now and say, right, okay, someone's going to buy a company for ridiculous amounts of money where it's not worth, and I'm going to go, right, I'll tell you what I'm going to sit and do nothing. I couldn't think of anything worse. I literally couldn't. And that's the whole point. And I think once you get that bug of what I'm doing now, like, that's why Jack, you know, not that it's going to take me aside from Warpaint. It's very hand in hand what it's doing. It's just that I see that as another elevation of our brand, giving back. You know, and that's been hard. It's a whole startup I've done in 18 weeks, and I've managed to do it a lot quicker because I've learned from before. But can you imagine that? And running Warpaint, it's been crazy. I lost half a stone in weight, but that was because I was excited and the adrenaline of it. And that's, it's like the buzz when I can remember the day when I made the decision that I was going to do Warpaint. I was on the golf course with my best mate. I kept talking about men's makeup brand. He said, Dan, stop talking about it and do it. And it was literally like someone did that and flicked the switch. I got off the golf course. Couldn't wait to get off the golf course, by the way. Sat in my car for 4 hours in the car park and called everyone I knew about how to start a brand. And then from that night when I went home, I was buzzing because I'd made the decision to start it. And then all the time, I was still in my full-time job, but in my back of my mind, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing this thing. And it wasn't about making money. It was about the buzz of doing it.
Absolutely.
And honestly, if you're doing, this is the other thing I see, right? You see founders or entrepreneurs who go and, you know, like these, like, I swear anyway, so I will swear, but these bullshit things you see on Instagram and stuff, and do you know what they are? Or on LinkedIn. Hi guys, like, follow me. I'll tell you how to make 100 grand in a month from buying products and selling them on Amazon. It's so easy. Just buy my ebook. Buy my ebook, or come onto this course with me. It's so that person is absolute crass. That is not entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship has become this cool thing, and it's not. It's nothing to do with that. And if you think like, oh, I've seen a product that I don't really believe in, but I think I'll make a load of money out of it, that is not entrepreneurship. You're not bought into that brand. You're not bought into what you're doing. You're doing it to make money. That's I'm very passionate about that.
It's very short term, isn't it? I mean, you might get that buzz from taking that $2,000 from someone for your course, but actually that won't generate any form of happiness in you. And I completely resonate.
And for them, by the way, trust me, those courses are a load of rubbish. They're a load of rubbish. If you pay $2,000, it's just ridiculous, you know, and that's what the ugly side of it is around, you know, buy this product here or drop shipping, and you can buy, well, drop shipping has a place, but you can buy this product because it's a fad and you can make a load of money on it. You know, is that really going to fulfill you? Yeah. Absolutely not. Do something that you believe in.
Absolutely. And do something. I feel exactly the same way when we spoke a bit before about, actually, well, may have been before, may have been on the talk, but about you having your bouncy castle business when you were 16. My brother and I set up a protein fruit smoothie company when I was a teenager as well, and never got anywhere, but had a great time. Made a little logo on some online website or something, and I think the reason why I love Parlour so much is that I've had so many entrepreneurial ideas over the years and never executed on any of them. And that's probably why one of my first questions to you was, it's all fine having the idea, but actually executing is the big thing. Because now looking back at it, it seems like men's makeup's a really obvious idea with hindsight. But actually being the person that executes on it to such a level is, that's where the real joy is, right?
But yeah, and you know what it was? That I was prepared to lose everything. That's the other thing. If you're not prepared or you can't do it, then don't, right? But if you've got a real thought, like I remortgage my house, not lose everything, you know, some car, left a good job, had a good career, but I'd rather have tried something and failed. Because then if I'd looked back in years to come and I'd not tried it, I would have could you imagine now? With like someone else would have done it, and then other brands are coming now. There's loads of other brands. Like, I would have absolutely been sick to my stomach, even if but if I tried and failed, it wouldn't bother me that much. You know, so that's the other thing as well. But don't risk it if you can't. Like, 100%.
And how do you balance that? And this is a very personal, selfish-driven question from me. But how do you balance that mind that is so driven and so passionate about the project at the same time as being a family man and a dad?
Quite easily, because I think there's different people who go different ways, right? So I work hard, like every founder. I work 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, I'm in the office or 7:30. You know, I work flat out till 5 o'clock, flat out, and I don't stop. But when I get home, I stop. Right, I didn't before but that's very difficult when you first start a brand. At the beginning, it's 24 hours. But I've learned now that, you know, I leave the office, go, right, guys, I'm going now. You know, but I'm a whirlwind in the office, as you can probably imagine. You know, ideas and I want to work. But then when I get home, I don't look at my emails. Yeah, because do you know what will happen? You get an email
ruin
at
your
5 o'clock. Imagine it's bad. You brew it, or you reply back to them. What they're going to do? They're going to reply back to you the next day. So what is the point of going through that turmoil at night? Or even if it's good, and you get all excited about it. If something's wrong, someone will call you. Something drastically going wrong, you get the phone. That's what I tell all my staff. If something's going wrong at night or whatever, call me, I'll pick it up every time. But what I'm not doing is going back and forth in emails. Because when I get home through 5 o'clock, I play with my kids. I always bath my kids every night. And I put them to bed. And I sit down and I watch telly and I'll relax. Because if I didn't, I would burn out very, very quickly. You know, and I think that's at the beginning, it's really hard though. Yeah, I'm saying it now because you know, I've got a team and stuff like that.
When do you think you put those boundaries in position?
Since I brought in my CEO, so I brought in the CEO really early. If I'm honest, I couldn't afford him, but I knew I needed it.
How early?
That's operational.
When
yeah, so a month before on Dragon's Den. So I didn't have him then. And he was Tangle Teaser, you know, the hairbrush. He was their CEO for 8 years, Matt Lumb. So he's been with me for 18 months. And having a team in place, you know, I started then being like, right, I'm going to go home. And it changed everything because, you know, of course I'd lie there sometimes at night. I can't sleep. And I'm thinking about ideas. I have to wake up and put them on my phone, but that's just natural. But what I'm not doing is getting home going, sorry, kids, I can't play with you because I've got to reply to this email. No one's going to reply back to me anyway. You know, I've got to finish this spreadsheet.
Yeah, one of the things I hate about being a founder is having to say to my little girl who's now 3, like, Daddy's got to go. She'll want to play or something, and I'll be like, Daddy's got to go and do some work now. And it's like you can just see the disappointment in her face, and it's literally soul destroying. And yeah, finding that balance at the beginning is very, very difficult.
It's hard, mate.
If you don't do something at the moment for us anyway, if I don't do something, no one else is going to do it. So, and it needs to be done. So that's the difficulty. Yeah,
and that's what I mean at the beginning, mate. It is really hard, and I had that as well. I just think you need to try and get to a place where you can switch off at night. Well, not switch off, be like, do I really need to get that done? Do you know what I mean? Do I really need to do that before 9 o'clock tomorrow morning? Or if I start at 8, do I need to get it done before then? A lot of the time you don't, believe it or not. A lot of the time you don't. So it's just making that judgment. Like, for example, my son's he's obsessed with football. And he's just started doing football on a Monday after school. And then he said, can you come and watch me on Monday? You know, I've got a meeting Monday afternoon. I'm like, big meeting. I'll move it. But I'm very fortunate because I'm a founder. I can do that, by the way. But because I want to go and watch him play football because he's asked me to do it. Well, I couldn't have done that before, but I've learned.
That's key, right? That's what it's all about.
Because forget it. Say it explodes, but then my kids, I had that a little bit, right, with my dad, entrepreneurial and stuff like that. I never saw him when I was growing up until I got to about 12, 14, and then I could go down the pub with him and play pool. But before that, never saw him. After he wasn't with my mum, but very rare I'll see him. And I remember that. Yeah, I do not want that with my kids.
Same here. Well, I think you've got to be aware of these things because it's very easy to get just wrapped up in all the elements that are necessary, and it's easy to forget what you're doing. Exactly.
But that's what you're doing it for. It's what you're doing it for your kids, yeah. So what's the point of doing it for your kids and like making them proud when at the end you turn around and you didn't have any time with them? Like, what's the balance? The balance is that you should have time with your kids. Because that is far outweighs anything to do business.
Right, mate. Well, we're almost at the end of our chat, but I want to just fire through a couple of quick rapid fire questions before we finish up. So,
all right, wicked.
First one, I'll start with a tricky one. If you had to choose 2 words to describe yourself, what would they be?
Passionate and emotional.
Nice, like it. Tell us one thing that you are most grateful for right now.
My kids, without question.
Love it. And this is a bit of a random one, but what's on your bedside table?
I haven't got a bedside table. There you go. I haven't. I've got a plug. That's it.
Just your phone.
Just my phone. That's it. I just plugged that in.
Fine.
No books, no nothing.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, that's fine. Nice and simple, minimal. Okay, and the last question, which is the question that we ask everyone at the end of the show, is: what's the one small change that you've made in your life that you'd wish you'd made earlier?
Believing in myself. Big one. That is made for me because that caused me a lot of stress and anxiety. It's not an arrogant belief in myself. It's just having confidence that maybe I can do it, where before I didn't. That changed a lot for me. I still not 100%, and it's probably not a quick fire answer, but it's still not 100% what it should be. But that's changed a lot for me.
Yeah, I think confidence is such a powerful tool if you can use it in a very specific way, in a way that it doesn't become arrogance and doesn't go too far the other direction, but also that you have enough confidence to execute on what needs to be done. I had a really awesome quote from Matthew Syed the other day that said, the best leaders have confidence in execution, but humility in evaluation. So they get the job done, but then they are in a positive way, their biggest self-critics, and they don't walk around like the big I am, like, look at me, I'm the founder of Warpaint or whatever. They have that humility, but they're confident to execute when it needs to be done.
That's so right, man. I think I hope I don't come across as arrogant, because that's the one thing I don't want to do ever. And it's what I'm saying about that confidence side is that honestly, I used to come home and think, I can't do this, I can't do that, and that's what gives you anxiety and makes everything worse. But when you actually start believing it, I can maybe do this, and it's exactly right. I think if you ask any of my team, about that, hopefully they'll sort of say, I'll never raise my voice or never say they're wrong. Do you know what I mean? That's because that's not what I want. What I want people to say, well done, because that's the way we used to say. If someone says, oh no, you're terrible at that would grill on me for a long, long time. And I think that's been the way especially in corporates. It's about the negative and not about the positive. And that's what I want to be, is just about being positive. And that's positive with myself.
Absolutely. Brilliant, mate. Well, thank you so much for that chat. That was really, really, really powerful, really honest. And I absolutely loved it. Lots for me to take away there myself. So I'm glad we got it done. And I look forward to seeing Warpaint go from strength to strength. And I can't wait to see the Jack platform when it comes out.
Cheers, Simon. Thank you so much for having me on. Well done, mate, on Dragon's Den.